Am I the a-hole for not choosing my biological dad to walk me down the aisle? When I 30F think about my life, it feels like there are two completely separate stories stitched together by one thread: survival. The first chapter begins with chaos. My earliest years were unstable at best. My mom, well, let's just say she's never been the type of person you could rely on. When I was 4 years old, my biological dad, Henry, went to prison for fraud and drug-related charges. He wasn't some mysterious absent figure before that. He was around, but his choices and the company he kept meant trouble was never far away. And when the law finally caught up to him, he was gone overnight. Suddenly, Mom was alone with 3 kids: me, my younger sister Lucille, and our older brother Max. But instead of figuring out how to be the parent we needed, she decided she couldn't handle it. She dropped us at our grandparents' house, literally handed us over, and left town. No plan for visits, no stability, just gone. My grandparents were already stretched thin. They lived on a fixed income, and years of bailing my mom out of her bad decisions had left them in debt. But they didn't hesitate to take us in. They made sure we were fed, clothed, and safe. We didn't have brand new toys or big vacations. Our birthdays were simple, our clothes often secondhand, but we had love. And as a kid who'd just been abandoned by her mom, love was worth more than anything. About a year later, Mom came back. She looked different, more put together, cleaner. And she wasn't alone. She had a new husband, Daniel, in tow. He was quiet, polite, well-spoken, and nothing like the men she'd been with before. She claimed she had changed and wanted us back. She begged my grandparents to forgive her and insisted this time things would be different. My grandparents were wary, but Daniel seemed solid, stable, maybe even a good influence. Eventually they agreed, and just like that, we were moving back in with Mom, though in hindsight I realized it was really Daniel we were moving in with. From the start, Daniel stepped into the role of a father in ways Henry never had. He had inherited property from his parents and worked as a landlord and property manager, which meant we were comfortable financially. But it wasn't just about money. Daniel gave us something far more valuable: his time. He took Max to every single hockey game, rain or shine, never missing one. He built Lucille a tree house in the backyard, complete with a rope ladder and a little flag she got to design herself. He taught me to play the guitar, sitting patiently for hours while I fumbled through chords, and he even surprised me with my very first guitar. It wasn't cheap, but he said he could see how much music meant to me and wanted to encourage it. For 4 years, our lives felt normal, happy even. We had family dinners, movie nights, and birthdays with homemade cakes and laughter. I thought maybe, just maybe, Mom had finally gotten it right. But then she threw it all away. Again. She cheated on Daniel with a coworker, and when she was caught, she left, just like she had before. The difference this time? Daniel didn't leave us. Even though he had no legal obligation anymore, he stayed. He came to visit us at our grandparents' house, helped us with schoolwork, and continued to be part of our lives. My grandparents adored him, and he was always welcome. When I was 13, my grandpa passed away. My grandma couldn't afford the mortgage on her own, so Daniel moved all of us, grandma included, into one of his rental properties, rent-free. And when Max and I eventually went to college, Daniel insisted on paying for our tuition and living expenses. Mom did resurface again, this time with yet another husband, Bert. I was already away at college, so I didn't spend much time around him. But from what Lucille and Grandma told me, he was decent enough. The only issue? Bert wasn't thrilled about Daniel still being in our lives. He saw us as his stepkids and didn't understand why Daniel was still around. But frankly, we didn't care. Daniel had been more of a dad to us than anyone else, and we weren't about to push him away. Then came another life-changing moment. During my last year of college, Mom died from an accidental overdose. It was a strange kind of grief, complicated and heavy. I felt sad, but not in the way I thought I should. Truthfully, we had been far more devastated when Grandpa died. At her funeral, I saw a man who looked uncannily like an older version of Max. It was Henry, our biological dad. He'd been out of prison and rehab for years, but hadn't been able to reconnect with us because, as it turned out, Mom had intercepted and destroyed every letter he sent. At first, I didn't believe him. But later, when visiting the old house my grandparents once owned, the new owners told us they'd been receiving letters addressed to us from prison. Not knowing our address, they had returned them to sender. Slowly, I realized Henry might have been telling the truth. Henry was emotional, saying how devastated he was that our mom had kept him from us, and how badly he wanted to make up for lost time. So we agreed to start seeing him, occasional lunches or dinners, but it was never the same as with Daniel. We still had weekly family dinners with Daniel at Grandma's house. That relationship was deep, built over years of love, consistency, and sacrifice. Fast forward to now. I'm getting married in 3 months. Asking Daniel to walk me down the aisle was one of the very first things I did after getting engaged. When I asked, he broke down crying deep, raw tears and said yes. That moment alone made all the hard years worth it. But then Henry got his wedding invitation. He mentioned to Grandma how happy he was to have repaired things with his kids in time to give one of his daughters away. Grandma, not realizing I hadn't chosen him, said, "Oh, she already asked Daniel." Henry was furious. He showed up at my house, visibly angry, and demanded to know how I could do this to him after everything Mom had already taken from him. I tried to explain, calmly at first, that Daniel had been my father in every way that mattered, but Henry kept getting louder. It escalated to the point where my fiancé had to step in and ask him to leave. The argument got so intense that neighbors actually called the cops. Since then, Henry has been sending me angry texts, accusing me of betraying him. Daniel even heard about the confrontation and, being the incredible man he is, offered to step aside so my real dad could take his place. That broke me. I told him, through tears, "You are my real dad." And we both ended up crying. But Henry hasn't stopped. He's been blowing up Grandma's phone, Lucille's phone, Max's phone, anyone he can guilt trip. At my bridal shower, I even got snide remarks from certain relatives about choosing a stranger over your own flesh and blood. Here's the thing, I don't hate Henry. I believe it when he says Mom kept him from us. I don't doubt that hurts him deeply. But Daniel stayed. Daniel showed up. Daniel raised me, gave me a home, paid for my education, taught me life skills, and loved me without obligation. So yes, I'm sticking to my decision. Daniel will walk me down the aisle. Am I the a-hole for choosing the man who raised me over my biological father?